I'm just your average, snack-loving, adventure-chasing golden dog. And guess what? My best friend Dad and I go on the coolest adventures. We've got a big black Jeep named Berty, a whole world to explore, and, of course, plenty of snacks. Every week is a brand new tail-wagging adventure. You never know what we'll find. Hidden carrots, new friends, maybe even buried treasure. So grab your hat, pack your snacks, and come with us.
Harley and Dad's Colorado River Adventure. It was a bright and sunny Friday morning when Harley the golden dog leapt into Berty the Jeep, his blue collar jingling with excitement. His tail wagged like crazy. "Ready for a Colorado River weekend, buddy?" Dad asked, tossing the last bag into the back. "Ready," Harley barked. "Let's go, Berty." Berty beeped cheerfully, and off they went, bouncing down the road with windows wide open and Harley's ears flapping in the wind. After hours of driving, mountains rising high and red canyons stretching wide, they finally reached the sparkling Colorado River. "Smells like adventure," Harley said, hopping out. "Smells like river dog," Dad chuckled. They found the perfect camping spot beneath a big cottonwood tree. The river sparkled nearby and birds chirped high above. "Let's get our tent up before it gets dark," Dad said, unrolling the gear. Harley tried to help, but mostly tangled himself in the ropes. "I'm pretty sure this piece goes here," he said, tugging on a pole with his teeth. "That's a stick," Dad laughed, shaking his head, "but I appreciate the enthusiasm." Together they finally got the tent standing, lopsided but proud. "It's beautiful," Harley declared, flopping onto the sleeping bag inside. "And more importantly, it's snack accessible." Dad grinned. Perfect start to our weekend. The next morning, Harley squirmed into a tiny doggy life jacket. "This thing is snug. Or maybe I've just had too many biscuits," he mumbled, wiggling his fluffy belly into the straps. Dad chuckled as he adjusted the buckles. "You're perfect just the way you are, biscuit belly and all." They made their way down to the riverbank where a big blue raft bobbed in the water, waiting like an inflatable dragon ready for adventure. A friendly river guide in a sun hat waved them over. "You folks ready for some whitewater fun?" the guide asked. Harley's eyes sparkled. "I was born ready." "Kinda." They climbed into the raft, Harley nestled between Dad's feet. The guide gave them a wink and shouted, "Hold on tight." Whoosh! The raft shot forward like a rocket. Rapids tumbled and swirled around them, and water sprayed everywhere. Harley barked wildly, tail wagging, completely soaked and loving every second. "Left!" the guide called. "Left!" Dad echoed, paddling hard. "Leftovers!" Harley barked. The raft bounced over a huge wave. Harley flew up into the air. "Whee!" he howled, ears flapping like flags. Dad laughed, water streaming down his beard. "Hang on, buddy." The rapids roared around them like a wild river beast, but Harley just grinned and faced it head on. At one point, a splash so big hit him, he was sure he'd turned into a goldfish. Finally, the water calmed and the raft drifted toward the shore. Dad hopped out first, pulling the raft in with a rope. Harley flopped onto the sandy bank with a soggy sigh. "I think I swallowed half the river. Tastes like fish and fun." Dad plopped down beside him, dripping and smiling. "I'd say you passed your rafting test with flying colors." Harley licked his paw. "Next time, I'm driving." After drying off and munching on a few trail mix cookies, Dad and Harley packed up their fishing gear and followed a winding path down to a quiet bend in the river. Tall red cliffs reflected in the water, and dragonflies zipped lazily above the reeds. "This spot looks promising," Dad said, setting down the tackle box. Harley sniffed the air and gave an approving wag. "Smells like fish, and maybe duck jerky?" Dad chuckled. "Focus, fisherman." While Dad set up the fishing pole, Harley tried to help by pawing through the tackle box. "What's this wiggly thing?" Harley asked, nudging a rubber worm. "That's bait," said Dad. "Oh," Harley said, tilting his head. "I thought it was a toy." "Well, it kind of is," said Dad. "A toy for fish." Dad cast the line with a whiz, and the bobber plunked into the water. They sat on the riverbank, legs and paws dangling over the edge, listening to the soft burble of the current. They waited. And waited. And waited. Harley sighed. "So, when do the fish show up?" Just then, the bobber bounced. "Harley," Dad shouted, "we've got one." Harley leapt to his feet and barked excitedly as Dad reeled in the line. A flash of silver danced just beneath the surface. "It's a rainbow trout," Dad grinned, lifting the wriggly fish from the water. Harley's eyes went wide. "It sparkles like a treasure fish. Can we eat it?" Dad gently released it back into the river, shaking his head with a smile. "Bye, shiny snack," Harley called. Dad wiped his hands and pulled out sandwiches from his pack. "Now this," he said, tossing Harley a peanut butter sandwich, "is a snack you can eat." Harley caught it midair. "Fishing is officially my favorite sport." They sat side by side, munching in peace, the golden sun slowly dipping toward the canyon rim. As the sun dipped behind the red canyon walls, Harley and Dad returned to their campsite beneath the tall cottonwood tree. Berty stood nearby like a trusty old friend, his tires dusted with red dirt. Dad set up the campfire, while Harley made sure the sleeping bags were extra fluffy, by rolling them, of course. The fire crackled and popped, sending sparks dancing up into the sky. They roasted marshmallows. Dad's were golden brown, and Harley's were, well, slightly smushed onto a stick. "Yours is on fire," Dad said. "It's called crispy style," Harley said proudly, chomping it anyway. Above them, the stars blinked to life, one by one, until the whole sky was a glittery sea. Dad pointed. "See that? That's the Big Dog constellation." Harley gasped. "I knew it! I have cousins in the sky." Just then, a distant howl echoed through the canyon. "Awoo!" Harley perked up. "Did you hear that?" "Coyotes," Dad said softly. "They're talking to the moon." Harley stood on a tall rock, chest puffed out. "Awoo!" he howled back. Far off, another howl answered. Harley's eyes lit up. "I speak coyote!" Dad laughed, shaking his head. "You're something else, buddy." They curled up in their sleeping bags, Harley snuggled close to Dad, the fire crackling low beside them. The stars shimmered above, and the soft sound of coyote calls drifted through the night. Harley gave one last little "awoo" before his eyes closed, and he drifted off to sleep under the starry skies. The next morning, the sun peeked over the canyon rim, painting the sky in soft pinks and golds. Birds chirped, and the river whispered as it flowed by. Harley stretched in his sleeping bag with a giant yawn. "Do we have to go home?" he mumbled, his ears still flopped from sleep. Dad smiled as he packed up camp. "Even adventures need an ending, bud. but don't worry, we'll be back." With everything loaded into Berty, Harley gave one last sniff of the river breeze, then hopped into his seat and plopped down with a satisfied sigh. "Let's roll, Berty," he barked. Berty gave a happy beep and started down the dusty trail. As they bumped along the road, Harley stuck his head out the window, ears flapping in the wind, tongue out, catching the breeze. "Hey, Dad," he called out over the hum of the tires. "Next time, can we go llama surfing?" Dad blinked. "Llama what?" "Or maybe space canoeing," Harley added thoughtfully. "You know, for variety." Dad laughed so hard he had to pull over. "You're a goofball, you know that?" Harley grinned. This was the best weekend ever. And with that, they drove toward home, already dreaming about their next big adventure.
What a great day that turned out to be! Best day ever! I can't wait until next week when we go on another adventure. Make sure you click subscribe so you can join me, and like my video too, please, because I sure like you. See you next week.